Hey everyone, welcome to Beach Investing. I'm your host, Andre Angelkowski. We're here in Etobicoke. We're in the prime beaches in Toronto, and we're about to look at the most ideal beach property. Hey everyone, so we're here in a house that was just recently vacated by a tenant that was living here. And what I wanted to share with you guys today is there are two sides to every story. There are good landlords out there and there's bad landlords out there. There are good tenants out there and there are bad tenants out there. This is going to be a story about a landlord who had challenges with a difficult tenant. Okay, so that's the story that we're going to be telling you today. And just to give you one example of how the tenant left the place is they broke all the tiles in the front entrance that I'm standing on right here. And then they took off. So that's just one example of what the tenant did, and I'm going to introduce you to the landlord right now. And what she's going to do is she's going to explain her story, her experience, and what she's learned out of this, and how she's going to handle it moving forward. So Sharon, how you doing?
Hi, Andrew.
So Sharon, I explained to our viewers what happened with the tiles. That's just one of the things that happened. Yeah. What are some other things that the tenant left you to deal with?
So this was a long-term tenant of nearly 4 years, and very good tenant up until about 3.5 years ago when...
No, 6 months ago.
6 months ago is when he lost his job, and things kind of started to deteriorate from there. A couple of things that happened is that there were 2 flood issues in his unit that directly impacted the unit below and caused some somewhat serious damage there. There was also, he left a lot of his belongings. When he removed his fixtures from the walls were pretty damaged. He claimed to be a non-smoker when we screened him, and I would say for the most part he wasn't smoking in the unit, but in the last couple of months you can tell from the smell that there was smoking going on in here, and just a lot less care for the unit overall. A lot of cleanup to go into this. Painting isn't just not your basic cleanup, but a really, really serious cleanup to bring things back to almost its original condition.
So what did it roughly cost you?
I'm going to say it's around $4,000 at this point. We have a little bit more to do in terms of the cleanup cost. Most of the other damage is being taken care of at this point, but I would say about $4,000.
Okay, and that's for repairs. Yeah. That doesn't mean like, you know, how long it's been vacant for and so forth, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So that's over and above. Now, when the tenants showed that things were declining for them and they were getting a bit more difficult to deal with, what did you do and how did you handle it?
The first thing I did was call the Landlord and Tenant Board and spoke to one of their representatives, explained the situation as a landlord. The emphasis to me was given that I should get legal advice, and that they explained the tenant had a lot of rights. So it would be difficult to evict him, and that I should seek legal advice. At that point, contacted a paralegal and just found out what are my rights and could I get him evicted sooner. So that is a very difficult process for a landlord. For a tenant, like, you cannot collect a security deposit, which makes it very difficult for a landlord to go and try and get back money for damage that are being done. Especially for this client who apparently left the country the day before he was supposed to do a walkthrough with me, took his keys, left, and just told me he's on a flight to another country. So that was kind of just the way he left things here. But spoke to the paralegal, and she just basically emphasized what was my end game and what was I trying to achieve. And I said my main end game is, given that I was going to sell the property, was to make sure he left and didn't stay on past the agreed upon date. So she said to ensure that, we needed to go through the channels of not just accepting a written letter from him or an email, as those weren't legally binding, and that you actually had to send them a notice through the Landlord and Tenant Board, and then after that you had to do an official serving of him. Once that was done, if the tenant didn't leave, then the sheriff would step in. So you needed to go through those official processes, which cost, I think, roughly a couple $100 to go through that, not including the legal fees.
Right.
So that's above and beyond the $400.
Okay, so
4,000.
yeah. So if you were to do this again, is there any lesson that you've learned going through filtering the tenants on which tenant you want to choose, and then once they get a little difficult, what to do, how to approach them, going with the paralegal? Is there anything that you've learned that you would say, you know what, this is how I would do it differently next time?
Personally, I don't think I would do anything differently because this tenant screened really well initially 4 years ago. He was self-employed. All the checks that we did, the references came in extremely well. The unit was kept really well up until, like I said, the point he lost his job, and then things kind of deteriorated for there. And then I think the attitude became, I don't care. I've given my notice, I'm leaving, I'm doing whatever I want kind of thing. There was a little bit of conflict back and forth between us because also another difficult, challenging thing was that I also live in the unit below. And so when you're living with a tenant in the same property, and the tenant is well aware of his rights, he sort of kind of pushed his boundaries at the end, which could have made things a lot more difficult. I'm pretty sure things could have ended here a lot worse than it did. But like I said, my main goal was to keep the peace. There were a lot of issues with the tenant and the owner of the house next door, trying to stay out of that conflict. The police were here several times. So a lot of stuff that I was being drawn into and trying to stay neutral about the whole thing in order just to minimize things from getting even worse. So that was the main goal, but like I said, I think I did everything I could. I don't think I could do anything differently because like I said, I think I would anticipate knowing the change in his character towards the end, I would attribute mainly to the loss of his job and his way of dealing with that. That's not something I could foresee or predict or, did the things I needed to do. Like I said, spoke to a paralegal who said, follow through with these steps to ensure he leaves. And he did leave on that day. It's just the way he left was something out of my control.
Yeah, so basically, I do agree with you. I think things could have gotten a lot worse and more expensive.
Yeah.
And you dealt with it very calmly, and you did stay neutral. You did take the advice of the paralegal, which I think is excellent advice. When you do have concerns, the Landlord-Tenant Board, they do favor the tenants, and so you do need to seek other advice, and preferably a paralegal who specializes in landlord and tenant disputes. So I think you did a great job here. I really do. And the lessons learned were valuable, and I hope the viewers can take some advice and some lessons here and apply them to whatever challenges you guys are facing. And this could be, I guess, a good segue into, I'm going to be hosting a workshop in November. So stay tuned to that. And if you do want to know more details, contact me through the link below, and I'll send you the more information on the workshop. And it will be, we'll be having paralegals there and other investors who have had their own personal experiences and challenges with tenants and management. I think another thing that you did mention to me before was you maybe consider hiring a third-party property manager who has a lot of experience and background experience with regards to tenants, and maybe that could have...
I think that might have been the small difference in this scenario, because as the owner living here, I think that the tenant kind of took advantage of that, and maybe if there was a third-party middle person, might have been a little bit more official, a little bit more, professional. Not to say that he couldn't deal with me, but if there's that third person there and you're dealing with a property manager, it would have come across possibly a little bit more official and may have changed the way things are. So that's maybe one thing I might have done differently, to have that person intercede in this, because it is hard when you're living in the same property with a person. It's very personal.
Yeah,
you're seeing the person every day. Hi, hello, and then at the same time it's like, what are you doing to my unit?
Yeah.
kind of thing. So, and hey, why aren't you paying me? Why, like, that's really difficult to maintain that balance. So that might have made a difference once things, again, start to deteriorate at the end.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I appreciate it. And thanks, guys, for watching.